Hello chess lovers, Suren here, and I have a very interesting game for you from 1966 Petrosian-Spassky World Chess Championship match, where in round 12 Spassky decided to surprise Petrosian and went for an irregular opening. Now let's see what happened on the board. Petrosian started the game with knight f3 and g6 by Spassky, c4, bishop g7, d4, d6, knight c3, knight d7, e4 and e6. Up to here there was no reason to doubt that the players were going into one of the systems of the King's Indian defense, but with his last move Spassky shows that he aims to diverge from the theoretical lines. Bishop e2, now comes b6, white castles kingside, bishop b7, bishop e3 and knight e7. Look at this position. Spassky goes for super solid Hippopotamus defense against Tigran Petrosian, nicknamed Iron Tigran, due to his almost impenetrable defensive playing style. In those years it was so hard to beat Petrosian that Kasparov once said, "In those years it was easier to win the Soviet championship than a game against Iron Tigran." In employing this system against Petrosian, Spassky was likely inspired by the Slovak international master Maximilian Witelki, who had played this opening as black against Spassky in 1964, and now Spassky adopts the same setup, this time at World Championship match. Chess master and author Fred Reinfeldt once stated defeat that any expert player would dismiss black's position as lost. Reinfeldt, who died in 1964, might have been surprised to see Spassky employing the same system of development successfully in the 1964 World Championship match. Queen c2 by Petrosian, now comes h6, rook d1, black castles kingside and d5, which is preventing f5. e5, queen c1, already the pawn on h6 is under attack, king h7 and g3. Instead of playing g3, Stockfish offers g4 move, and if a5 with the idea of securing the c5 square for the knight, then white can go for g5, although after h5 not sure how is white going to deal with black's closed king side. Let's go back. After king h7 we see g3 by Petrosian. Of course this is a more solid move. f5. Instead of playing f5, it would have been better first to play a5 and then knight c5 and then bishop c8 and only then f5, but Spassky had different ideas and he went for f5 straight away. He takes f5, knight takes f5, bishop d3, bishop c8, king g2, knight f6, knight e4, knight h5, bishop d2, bishop d7 and king h1. Well, if a move like g4 forking both knights, then black has this strong defensive resource, knight h4 check. If knight takes h4, then queen takes h4. If g takes h5, then queen h3 check, forking the king and the bishop, and then queen takes d3. Black stands much better. If h takes g6, then king g8, not allowing white to expose the king side too much. That's why after bishop d7, king h1 was played and knight e7. Black is preventing g4 threat, but black could actually go for king h8. If g4, then knight h4. If knight takes h4, then queen takes h4, and if g takes h5, then rook f3. Although I guess that for humans it's difficult to calculate this line up to the end. If bishop takes h6, then rook takes d3, and then king takes g7, and the position is actually equal. But Spassky chose a safer line. He played knight e7. Now comes knight h4, bishop h3, rook g1, bishop d7, bishop e3, queen e8. Black is going to bring his queen on f-file, queen c2. Meanwhile, white is intensifying the pressure on this b1 h7 diagonal, king h8, knight d2, knight f5, knight takes f5. Well, if a move like knight takes g6 check, then black can recapture, and if g4, then knight g3 check is very strong and the position is equal. That's why after knight f5 we see knight takes f5, which gives white better chances. G takes f5 and g4. Petrosian wants to open up the g file and attack black king. e4 was played. Actually, it was better to play f4. If bishop g6, then queen f6, and if bishop takes h5, then f takes e3, although still white has a preferable position, but this continuation could have been better for black. Instead, we see e4. Now comes g takes h5 and f4. Another strange move by Spassky. He's taking under attack both bishops. Actually, it was important to capture on d3 and then play rook e8. But in the game we see f4, which actually allows Petrosian to gain a huge advantage. Now you can pause the video and try to find Petrosian's next moves. Ready? In this position, Petrosian went for his favorite exchange sacrifice and captured on g7. Look at this move. He's removing black's powerful bishop from g7 square, which was successfully safeguarding black king. And now with his dark squared bishop, white can create too many problems for black. Queen takes g7. Of course, you won't allow bishop d4 check. That's why queen takes g7 was played. Now comes rook g1. Petrosian is also taking under control the g file, queen e5. By the way, if a move like e takes d3, then white can simply recapture. If bishop f5, then bishop d4. If bishop takes d3, then rook takes g7. And now white can make use of windmill tactic. And then knight takes f3. If rook takes f3, then rook takes a7, discover check, and then rook takes a8 check. This is going to be winning for white. Or after queen takes d3, if a move like queen takes g1, then white can simply recapture and then king h1. If f takes e3, then queen takes e3. And again, let's have a quick look at this line where in the end of the day, again, white is managing to gain a huge advantage. And then knight f6 is very strong. If c5, then d takes c6. And then king h2. If rook f5, then queen takes d6. This should be winning for white. Let's go back. That's why after rook g1, queen e5 was played. Right now, as you can see, still both bishops are hanging, and the question arises how to bring this bishop on this long a1 h8 diagonal. And in order to bring into life that idea, Petrosian went for another mind-blowing move. This time he played knight f3. Look at this majestic position. 3 white pieces are emprised, but black's position is lost. With his last move, white brought the knight on f3 square, attacked black queen and freed the d2 square for the bishop, and now white can bring his bishop on the long diagonal. For example, if e takes f3, then bishop d2, the bishop is coming and the game is over. Let's go back. That's why after knight f3, Spassky played e takes d3, and it was in here that Petrosian made a mistake and captured on e5, after which it turns out that black is managing to defend successfully. It was very important to capture on d3. If bishop f5, then knight takes e5. If bishop takes d3, then bishop d4. And after d takes e5, bishop takes e5 check. It turns out that the rook together with the bishop are managing to cooperate successfully and are managing to bring into life windmill tactic. Let's have a look how white can win the game. This rook is coming and is starting to pick up everything on the 7th rank, and then the rook is retreating back on the 3rd rank, is capturing the bishop as well, after which this endgame is going to be winning. White's 3 pawns for the exchange ensure him a fairly simple win. But the interesting thing is that Petrosian saw this variation, but he was confused by black's possibility of checking with bishop e4. After bishop takes d4, here bishop e4 check. And now if f3, then black can play king h7, and after f takes e4, d takes e5, bishop takes e5, rook f7. This gives an unclear position that would be difficult to play when short of time. Under fatigue from the foregoing complex struggle, Petrosian failed to notice that in answer to bishop e4 check, he could cover his king and give a check, after which the game is over. If king h7, then rook g7 check, and then after winning the bishop on e4 square, white can easily win the game. But Petrosian missed this line, and after e takes d3, he captured on e5. Now comes d takes c2, bishop d4. Finally the bishop is coming on the long diagonal. D takes e5, bishop takes e5 check. Still white is managing to start a windmill, but already black has a powerful passed pawn on c2 square, which is managing to change the whole game. King h7 was played, rook g7 check, king h8, rook f7 check, king g8, rook g7, king h8, rook g6 check. In the time scramble, the world champion didn't realize he was bringing about a threefold repetition of the position, and yet he would have been risking nothing if he had made the following moves. Instead of rook g6 check, he could go for rook takes d7 and then capture on c7 as well, and then rook g7 check. He could go for this line actually at a lightning speed, and then adjourned the game. The game analysis at home would have established whether he should carry on the fight or settle for repetition. Let's have a look at the following line which can arise after king h8. White can actually capture on a7 as well and then bring back his rook on c1, after which bishop c7, but actually again this won't give white anything. Still the position is equal and there is not much white can do. In the game after king h8, rook g6 discovered check was played, king h7, rook g7 check, and it turns out that black can make now king h8, after which threefold repetition is on the board and this is a draw. A very unique game, I think. Everything started from the opening where Spassky went for that irregular opening, and then after Spassky made several inaccuracies, Petrosian went for an exchange sacrifice, and then we saw those three pieces hanging on the third rank, but unfortunately in his analysis Petrosian miscalculated the variations, didn't go for queen takes d3, and in the end the game ended in a draw. Thanks for watching, I hope that you enjoyed this game. For more games, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I will see you in the next video.